So, today we are going to be talking about the different grammar-based text for Spanish that we have to offer here at Voces, and we do have a few new titles. If you're already familiar with some of our past curriculum, there's new things to discover as well. So before I get started, just in the chat, I was wondering if everyone can tell me, if you're already using Voces, what titles do you use, or, what are you interested, if you have not ever used Voces before, what are you interested in, which titles, maybe the Introductory Spanish or the Voces Por Mundo dos that we mentioned before the breakout rooms, just so I can get an idea of who's here and, what we're most interested in learning about.
Hannah, when we put something in the chat, is it going just to our group or is it going to everybody?
It's just going to the breakout room chat. So we're not sharing chats with the French breakout room. So yeah, we're all good here. So I see some first time using Voces, Primario 1, Introductory Spanish for elementary, okay. All right, well, I'm glad to have everyone here. So we're going to talk about most of these titles. Some of them will be covered in different sessions. For example, we have a session tomorrow that talks specifically about Primaria, which is a little different from this series. I'm just reading the chat a bit. So let me just go ahead and get started. So we're going to take a basic look at each of the titles that I'm introducing in this presentation. We're going to review the basic structure of a chapter or unit, any additional features or special pages that we think you should know about, and a few of the Voces tools, which we may have already gone over yesterday. I know there was some things about the game center and grading, but we'll just briefly touch on anything about Voces tools that you guys are curious about. So these are the 4 titles that I'm going to be talking about today. So we first have Introductory Spanish, Voces Por Mundo Uno and Dos, which have been, so some of you mentioned in the chat that you used Spanish Novice. And so while that is still available for anyone who has an active subscription, say your school paid for like a 3 or 5 year subscription, you've been using Novice, that's still available to you, but Voces Por Mundo Uno and Dos are basically a revamp of Spanish Novice. We've added a lot of new features, updated authentic materials, all sorts of things. It's basically the evolution of Spanish Novice. And we will be continuing this series for Voces Por Mundo 3 and 4. And then the last title that I'm going to talk about is Spanish Intermediate, which I believe down the road will be replaced. Once we have Voces Por Mundo 3 and 4, that will be kind of our replacement.
Hannah?
Yes.
Since I do have the Voces Novice,
Yeah.
the Spanish Novice, they had mentioned yesterday that I'm able to get these other books. Am I able to or no?
Yes. So if it's not on your account, you can, I think either you can manually add it or you can email us and we will add that to your account. You can have Novice and the Voces Por Mundo at the same time if that's something you're interested in, if you already have that subscription.
So
yes, you can add that in settings. You can choose any of the titles.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went to settings yesterday and I was only able to add like 2 different ones, and I only wanted to add just the one. I added let's see, I added Nuestro Historia 1. Now the inactive books, I only have a choice of one other one, and that's Nueva Historia 2. So I don't see them in the other inactive books to add them.
So if you want, Shirley, we can talk offline and I can help you. You can
Okay.
maybe at the end of this, we'll stick around and I'll show you how to do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, and just to reiterate the questions in the chat about Nuestra Historia, currently this session is not going to be about the Our Story series. There are sessions, I think Erica's doing a session this afternoon specifically about the Our Story series. So definitely attend that if that's something you're interested in. So this is more of our traditional side of the Spanish textbooks.
Oh, this is traditional?
Yes.
Oh, I was wanting the training in the Nuestra Historia.
I'm
Yes.
doing that at 11 today.
Oh, okay. So is this, if we are using that, should I still attend this?
If you would like to attend, you might be able, as we said before, you get everything when you buy a Voces subscription, so there might be
Okay.
elements in here that you want to add to your Our Story curriculum. So if you'd like to,
Okay.
you can stay, or you can go have breakfast and then come
Okay,
back.
Hannah. Thank you.
All right. So yes, this is the traditional grammar-based titles, and I'm going to be talking about these four specifically. So what I've done is I pulled just the outline of one chapter from Voces Por Mundo. So the outline of a chapter in Voces Por Mundo is similar to Introductory Spanish and Intermediate, with just a few elements, missing from one title or the other, but all of these titles follow the basic structure, where you'll start with a can-do pre-assessment so your students can see, what is before them in the chapter. And then you'll introduce the core concepts, the themes. In this case, it's food and drinks, and then potentially some grammar concepts. You'll also have activities for them to do to practice those grammar and vocabulary concepts. So I call that the intro, and core of the chapter will be the first few pages of any unit. Next, we will have the bonus content and culture that will include interviews, authentic materials, in this case, cultural exploration, all sorts of things that you can add in as you teach those key concepts, vocabulary and grammar. And then at the end, we have different assessment tools. So that's basically what one chapter of any of these titles will look like. And Meredith, this is the Spanish section. So if you want the French breakout room, you will be going to the breakout room titled Melissa. She is doing the French section.
And Hannah, can I just ask, are you already recording?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Just had to make sure, yes, the recording button is on. Okay. So the first title that we have is Introductory Spanish. We often say that this is an exploratory title. This might be something, I saw in the chat someone uses this for their elementary students. This is something where maybe you only have your students a few times a week. You just want to start, you just want to introduce them to Spanish. There's not, you wouldn't necessarily use this title for a 5-day-a-week, you see your students every day, sort of class setup. And I would say it's ideal for middle school students, although as we said, someone is using it for elementary.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, now I got, okay.
So I just wanted to log in and show you Introductory Spanish a bit. So I'm going to log in. And one thing to note about this title is that we don't currently have any plans to update it like we have with Spanish Novice in creating Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2. So, this is do a large update of it. We can certainly add on to it as we see the need, but it will not be overhauled like Spanish Novice. We are not talking about the Nuestra Historia series in this session. You can join Erica's session at 11 today if you would like to talk about those. This is just the grammar section, the traditional textbooks. So if we take a look at Introductory Spanish, just any
Hannah?
chapter. Yes.
I had some problems yesterday. Did you record from yesterday?
We did record yesterday, so
Oh, okay. Then I can watch after. Okay, thank you.
yes, you'll be able to watch any of the sessions this week under the training tab in the conference library on our website. It will be right up here in its own tab, so you'll be able to go back and watch
okay.
everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this is what a chapter in Introductory Spanish looks like. You'll see, as I said, we've got those intro pages, so you can introduce the target vocabulary with your students. And this does not include grammar concepts within chapters. At the very end, the last chapter, you see it's titled Start Thinking About Grammar. So this title is not necessarily designed to get students, build an understanding of grammar concepts. It's just to introduce and explore Spanish, basically. So you see it has all of the other usual elements you'll see in a Voces title. There will be practice activities. We have panoramas, authentic materials. In the video section, it includes interviews by native speakers, as well as these video series by Senor Blumel, which you might be interested in. But really, it's just a basic, here's how we get our students interested in learning Spanish. Oh boy. There's construction on my street, so if you hear any loud machinery, that's what's happening. I can hear it, I hope you can't. That's the basic look at Introductory Spanish. I don't think I need to go too in-depth into it unless anyone has any questions about it. Otherwise, I will move on to Voces Por Mundo. We haven't made any major updates to Introductory Spanish. There are, there's images throughout. For example, in the vocabulary section, there are some cultural images. Images in the authentic materials section for sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
good. Then it's just Neil. Needs to fix his stuff. And Cindy, if you are having trouble viewing the content in any title, someone else brought that up earlier, so please email us at info@vocesdigital.com so we can take a look at your account. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I will move on to Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2. So I am just going to introduce a few of the new elements that we added to this. So a lot of you may be familiar with Novice. Spanish Novice. So if we look at a chapter, a few of the new things that we've added in this videos and presentations section, which further elaborates on those key concepts, we have videos by Spanish Playground, which will talk about vocabulary and grammar. So if we just see, and it comes with, here are the useful words, pre-reading questions. Ooh, that is so loud for me. We don't need to listen to it right now, but you'll see a little skit relating to the theme of the chapter that you can watch with your students and complete the questions. We have new and updated authentic materials. This new Viajamos section, which gets students thinking about the country is through the lens of a tourist almost. So you'll start by looking at a map of the country together, you'll get some ideas about places to go together, and at the very end of this section, there will be a multiple choice question for students to answer, and they'll be asked to plan out their trip itinerary. So that's for each country in the chapter. Of course, the images are going to load a bit slowly because I'm sharing on Zoom, but here's the Encuesta section. Yes, so we worked with Spanish Playground to develop these videos, so you'll only find these Spanish Playground videos in Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2. So it won't be on their main content. So it's like new. So yeah, if all of your students fill out this Encuesta section at the end, you'll get a little pie chart of who wants to go where or do what in the country. And so one great thing is we got a bunch of new interview videos for these titles. So instead of a new person in each chapter, you will have Marielle and Luis. You'll follow them in every chapter while they answer questions about the different themes, and students will be able to get to know them throughout both curriculum, which is really special. So Marielle, you'll definitely get to know her. Maybe you'll want to be her friend by the end of it. One more new addition is stories. There are 2 stories in each chapter of Voces Por Mundo, written by Brian Candle and 2 native speaker writers, one of them being Rodrigo Salas. If you are someone who has used Nuestra Historia a bit, but you also really like what Spanish Novice had to offer, we have now included some stories in with this curriculum, and you can use the storytelling strategies that you've learned while using Nuestra Historia. Yeah, so those are the main new things that Voces Por Mundo has to offer. We've done other updates throughout the chapter, added in new elements, but that's basically the gist of how Voces Por Mundo is set up. Yeah, we're really excited about the stories. We hope you like them, and especially for anyone who hasn't used stories before, we hope that gets you excited, you and your students excited about using them in the classroom. As Erin mentioned before, the breakout rooms, Voces Por Mundo Dos is newly completed, so you can dive in and start planning your school year with Voces Por Mundo Dos as well. It follows basically the exact same structure as Voces Por Mundo Uno. I also forgot to mention the lecturas section. So we have also included scaffolded readings about different cultural and historical figures and events that your students will be able to read in versions. So it'll start with the most basic version, and then the same story will occur in version B with a few more details, so you can practice your reading skills with your students that way while getting some history or cultural content. To native Spanish classes, you certainly could use any of our curriculum with heritage speakers, although our curriculums aren't designed necessarily for heritage speakers. This page, for example, might be appropriate to have your non-native speakers work with version A, while the more complicated version C at the end, maybe you could assign that to your heritage speakers. So it all, it's not necessarily designed for that, but there are definitely ways you can use it. And you can also always ask us, and we can, direct you to the right title for your class. Yeah, so I'm jumping back to my slideshow. Yes, so
Erica, can I ask you, can I do some ask? In the Voces editor, they change it now, the options. And there is page options. And there is one option inside this menu called sharing. Do you know about this?
the
Well,
sharing library is what you're asking about,
No,
like,
no, editor.
hey, I can jump in on that and just let you know that we do have a new editor, a new version, and Neil did a session on it yesterday, which is
Yes.
recorded, and I could send you a
Okay,
link to that session. And so, or you could
after.
make a
Thank
meeting.
you.
But I'll send something to you. All right, Hannah.
Okay.
yeah, and to answer Jill's question in the chat, the stories in each of the units are independent of each other, so they're all standalone stories. So if you don't want to read stories in one chapter, but you do in the other, it's really easy to do that. Yeah, let me see. I don't know. Oops. Yeah, I think I basically covered all of the things I had to share about Voces Por Mundo, so we can... Oh, I did take some screenshots. So basically, I already covered all of this. So the Spanish playground, the stories, the native speaker interviews, the Viajamos section. And Connor, anyone who is missing chapters in Voces Por Mundo Dos will need to, again, I think email info@voces because all of the chapters should be live, so it is something to do with your account. And as a reminder, I will be sharing my slides with you all at the end, so you will have those to refer back to, for sure. Okay, so our very last title that we're talking about today is Spanish Intermediate. So this is one that you could use for your Spanish 3 and 4 classes, a very similar chapter structure to everything else that we've talked about today. One particular thing about this title is that it focuses on exploring the differences between Spain and Mexico. So unlike Voces Por Mundo, which focuses on a different country for every chapter, this one does have a heavy focus on these two countries. So let me just go to it. And so for lesson plans or pacing guides, for example, for Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2, that's something that I'm working on right now. So we're hoping to have that to you by the end of the month so that you can plan out your classes using that. But otherwise, you can just kind of go through, you know, as it feels natural to you. You can just start with these introduction pages and make your way through the directory. But yes, pacing guides soon for these titles, at least Voces Por Mundo, because they are new titles. Yes, so back to Spanish Intermediate. So you'll see, again, a very similar chapter structure to the other titles, including, I don't think I have talked about in depth too much the different assessment tools. So you will have different types of quizzes. So in this case, we've got some grammar quizzes as well as more tests that test directly these concepts that you've introduced at the beginning of the chapter. There is kind of a more traditional exam, so you'll have a multiple choice section as well as a writing. And this is very similar to Voces Por Mundo as well, this layout. But we have the traditional examen as well as an integrated performance assessment. which asks students to complete a task under one context. So your student is going to be traveling to Mexico and stay with a host family. So how are they going to navigate that? You'll be able to test them through different interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational tasks. And every title in Voces is editable. Yes, Rebecca. So if you wanted to write, add questions onto your exam or remove them, you can certainly do that. And then one last thing I wanted to mention about intermediate Spanish is that it does include a reader at the end that you can use. So you'll start with a chapter. You can read that along with your students, and then there will be some questions for each chapter to go through. Okay, so does anyone have anything they want to learn more, like any pages or sections they are particularly interested in looking at deeper before I move on with my presentation? For example, if you wanted to look at a story from Voces Por Mundo, we can take a look at that. Kinesthetic activities. Oh, that's a good point, Shirley. So just for the time being in Voces Por Mundo 1, they're not present in Voces Por Mundo 2, but we do have a section here, which here it is, which you can definitely borrow and use if you're using Voces Por Mundo 2 or any of the other titles. So in every chapter in this one, under lecturas, there is kinesthetic activities. So basically, here's one which gives you an outline of how to play a game of hangman with your students using the vocabulary from the chapter. Prompts for conversations to get your students up and walking around. That's in every chapter in this title. So see coloring, Pictionary, Four Corners. There could be games that you're familiar with using in your classroom, or they could be something new that you've never seen before. So that's definitely a cool section to look at and explore. All right. I also have someone asking about the panoramas and looking at a story. So I'm going to look at a panorama real quick, and then we'll jump to looking at a story. Okay, so that will be, so the panoramas in Voces Por Mundo are actually under the Viajamos section. So, as your student has looked at and read about the country in question, they will also get a panorama view of, some interesting site in that country. In this case, we must be in Panama. And the cool thing about these is that they are a completely 360 view. Students can zoom in and talk about, what they see. So, what kind of, who are these people? Where are they going? You can ask questions like that. It appears that these might be school children. What are they wearing? You can talk about their uniforms. What do the buildings look like? How do people get around? And so there's just description questions afterwards for all of the panoramas. So yeah, that's one. Let's see if we can look at another one that might be really cool. So that's in the Viajamos section, and it will say panorama. Oh yeah, this one's really, there's really beautiful in Honduras. So they can zoom in, zoom out. What kind of bird is this? It's a really fun section. And then we will just look very briefly at a story. So for the stories in this book, there are before and after activities that you can either assign to students beforehand, or you can do them together just to introduce the vocabulary and measure comprehension for after you read the story. So here's just a few. this one's, making sure they understand how to use the word para. And then the story. So for now, the stories in these titles do not have native speaker audio to narrate, but that is something we are looking into getting in the future, as well as there aren't any illustrations, but that's certainly a good opportunity to get your students to draw the stories themselves. And, we have, for example, in the teachers panel under resources, we do have comic strips, for example, that students can use to draw the stories. And yes, the kinesthetic activities are only in El Mundo 1 for the moment. And we are, Erica, working on something new for Voces with brand new videos that will help you teach with Voces. There's going to be a lot in there, and we'll definitely make sure you know when it's available so that you can use that as one of your tools for teaching with Voces. I don't know if Aaron has mentioned it yet, but there is something coming, I guess, is what I'll say.
It will be exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited about it, and I think everyone will enjoy it too. Yeah. Just making sure that I have, yeah. Okay, so Pascal wants to see the Lectura section again, so the 3 versions. I'll just go over that again briefly. So this is in both El Mundo 1 and 2, a very simple version of the story with true and false questions. In version B, you add a few more details. And the great thing about this is it does have the, more images to aid in comprehension. Yeah, so version B, the questions are a little bit more detailed, so they're like full answer questions. So it's just, just a great way to get students reading more and more complex stories and things. All right, there's a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm like bouncing back and forth. Let me see. So how far out the plans for 3 and 4? We're planning Voces Por Mundo to be ready for next school year. So fall 2024, we are planning for both of those titles to be ready for you to use in your classrooms. And can these sections be assigned separately? I don't believe so. The assignment tool only works with, you can assign this page and not version A and B, correct, Mike? Like if they wanted to assign version B, that's not
Yes, if it's on one page, you would just assign one.
Yeah. You could you can make a duplicate of the page. You could certainly separate it yourself and then assign them. So if you made a duplicate of the page, deleted version B and C, then you could just assign version A, that sort of thing. So that's one great thing about the editor. If there's something that, well, no, you can't really do that, but if you use the editor in this way, you can. And then I will show again how to get to the comic strip. So again, that is in the teachers panel under resources. And then on this first page, we have a lot of stuff here, but if you scroll down, you'll see a 6-panel comic strip, 4-panel comic strip. There's a lot of things in here. You'll just click on the button and it will open it for you. You can print it out. You can download it. So there's a 6-panel one as well, just depending. There's a lot of excellent things in the additional resources, so I definitely recommend you check those out. We'll close those. Okay. All right, so a few additional things just about Voces in general that you can take advantage of. So I think we mentioned yesterday a few of the different games, but I did want to highlight the Pedro's Adventures game. like it's in this one for some reason. I don't know why. In most of the Spanish titles in the Game Center, there it is, Pedro's Adventures. A really cool, kind of like a Zelda sort of Spanish games. Students can point and click to navigate the little world. And it's a little bit of a short game, but it could be fun to play along with your students. And yes, I had one question. So once again, any of the titles, once you sign up for your Voces subscription or your free trial, you'll get all of these titles. You will also get everything that we have in the Voces library. You get to pick and choose what you use in your classroom. So you would get all of this. For those who are interested in the Nuestra Story series, you have access to that as well. I can try and open the game. Let me see. It just might take a minute.
Yeah, it's definitely a little slower when you're sharing on
I was gonna say. While that's doing that, I will also mention, if you have not yet, at the end of every Spanish title, we have included the Go Netflix series that you can watch with your students. It includes, I believe, 2 different sets of questions, one for your beginning learners and one for your intermediate. So you can watch that with your class. Maybe you have a TV show Fridays or whatever you do in your classroom.
Sorry, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So to access the Netflix, I have my account, which I can use in school, is not a problem. So you look for, in Netflix, where do you look for those stories?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Spanish intermediate, but in any title, it's going to be, you don't need your Netflix account. In any title, it's going to be down here at the bottom.
Okay.
It's split up by episode. We have 6 parts as well as the full episode.
Yeah.
And so when you click on that, we have hosted all of the episodes on Vimeo. They're also available on our own server. And so you can just watch them here. Again, here are.
Okay. Do they have subtitles? Do they have subtitles that will help them?
Yes. So you can turn that on. You can turn that off. With Vimeo, you can slow it down as well, half speed. But yeah, there's subtitles on everything.
Okay. Thank you. That was all. Thank you. Appreciate.
Yes. Okay. And then I have another question. Mike, can you yeah. So in account settings, if you do not see any of these titles, you want to make sure to check here to see if you have any inactive books. I have everything, so it's all right here, but you're going to want to make sure. If you don't see that, if you don't see a particular title that you want, check here first, and if you're still having issues viewing any of the content, please get in contact with us and we will make sure that that is all fixed.
And Hannah, can I also just say, if you click on the available titles drop down, a lot of our users will have titles in there available. You've got everything showing. But if you're a teacher, you would see a drop down list of things that you haven't added. So if you don't see Por Mundo 1 or ESL, that's what you can do.
Okay, thank you. I was like, this is not a very good example because I have everything.
Yes, you've got everything. So you're not the typical teacher.
Mm-mm. And yes, Cindy, so the Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2 are meant to be a new, updated, revamped Spanish Novice. If you have an active subscription for Spanish Novice, of course, you can still continue using it. But I highly recommend you to check out Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2 because of all the new features and things that we've added and updated. Oh, what? Oh my, I think the game finally started. It started playing the music for me. Okay. Coming back to where we were. And And one more thing about this slide. So we mentioned Pedro's Adventures, we mentioned Go. You can also add on readers from our library if you are more interested in adding. In fact, I'm not even, so you go, how do you add readers, Mike? That's my question to your
That
account.
I don't know the answer because I
Okay.
have not done that.
That is
But we
something
can
you
look
can
into it
do,
any better.
but I don't know how to do. Well, you have to buy them. Like, there's add-ons available for purchase is what I mean. I just am not sure. I think now with the new library, I'm not sure how to navigate back to the page where I saw that. Wait, right here maybe. No, those are the print readers. Wait. I found it. Okay. Under pricing, there is a Buy Voces add-ons tab where you can add a reader. So like it is at the end of Spanish Intermediate, we have this novella. I believe that's how it works. You can add these on, or maybe not. It might not be like that. It might be when you switch titles, you'll see the reader at the end. That sounds right to me. Sorry. I guess I should have prepared more. I've never added a reader to my account. The levels, so basically Voces Por Mundo 1 and 2, I would say you can use Voces Por Mundo 1 for your Spanish 1 high school students and Voces Por Mundo 2 for your Spanish 2 high school students. I saw someone earlier in the chat that they even used Voces Por Mundo 2 with their Spanish 3, I believe. And yes, so the readers, when you add that onto your account, it is extra, but you will be able to use it with your whole class. Okay. Yeah. And one thing about Voces Por Mundo is that Voces Por Mundo 1 is currently available in print, and we are currently working on the print version for Voces Por Mundo 2. Which if you have not seen them before, these print versions will obviously leave out, you know, the video content. We can't include Spanish Playground in there. So there are a few things that, a few ways that it is different from the digital version, but we're really excited to offer these. And yes, if I come back over to this pricing tab for the print, so if you don't have a subscription, one copy of a print edition is $80, but I believe it's $60 if you have a Voces subscription, like a digital subscription already. And Jill, I'm not sure about that reader question. If you have to I don't believe you have to repay for it, but I will look into it and get back to you.
I'm looking into that now, and I'll let you all know very.
Thank you, Mike. For level 4, should I use Nuestra Historia 3? For level 4, well, the way that I think of our Spanish titles and our titles in general is that one, you know, for example, here we have Nuestra Historia 1, Voces Por Mundo 1. I generally think of it as you use 1 for your Spanish 1, 2 for your Spanish 2, 3 for your Spanish 3. Obviously, you know, every class is different. If you find that your Spanish 2 class is like really, you know, they're advanced, you know, they're getting bored with whatever, you know, using Voces Por Mundo 2 or Nuestra Historia 2. The great thing is that you do get every title with your subscription. So if you have students who are advanced, you can simply, you know, direct them to that higher level for that challenge that they're looking for. So that is what I would say about, you know, which one is best for my particular class at their level. Yeah, and Jill has a comment about that as well. You can also talk with other teachers that have used Voces products and just, you know, get a feel for what's good for your classroom. I'm going to move here. I kind of touched on this already, but the supporting documents that we have available to you. So we saw the additional resources tab already, which includes those comic strips, but it also includes so much more in there. There is this scope and sequence, pacing guides for, the first chapter of the title. We have these exit tickets, which can be useful for the end of class. I really encourage you to explore that and download some of these printable items for your classroom. And then, so this other supporting documents, which has, a vocabulary list, some list of can-dos, rubrics. Where you will find that is you'll go to the library and click on the title you're interested in. And when you scroll down, you will see the supporting documents we currently have available. There's also an extra tab for the ACTFL and state alignments that you can take a look at if you need those. If you don't have the new titles yet, I would encourage you to check settings and see if you have inactive books, and then add them in the drop-down menu. If you are still having trouble with viewing the old or the books that you're interested in, definitely get in contact with us and we can take a look at your account. But any subscription that you have should, I believe, have everything available. But yeah, definitely get in contact with us if you have any questions specifically about, I can't see this title, I want this one. We'll work it out with you.
And Hannah, can I just say that there are some school districts that intentionally said we don't want teachers to have access to certain things. And so there might be a few exceptions out of there, like some of the bigger districts purchase things. And so if you don't see those, it might be because your district has chosen that.
Gotcha. Good point. So yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I've been using Voces for the first time last year, school year, but not the whole year. And when I saw the program, I think it was wasted for us because it was not rightly used. What I realized is it's pretty good for whatever Voces you're using. Just print out the unit for a teacher. Print out everything there so you can organize and start with activities with all the stuff you give very good with the TPRS, practice the vocabulary, then go to the activities and really grade the evaluation, because it's not putting your kids in the computer. It doesn't work like that. It's an amazing program. I'm like, wow. So that's what I wanted for my school again this year, but it needs to be rethink. I think you have to print the unit, learn what you have there, select activities that will be good for your kids or switch it around. And it works very good that way. It's just a suggestion.
All right. Yeah, we do have a lot of teachers that find it easier to print everything that they need. So that's definitely a good point. So just to show you how to do that. So if you wanted to print out this vocabulary page, you would just go to tools, or yes, everything.
And you know what?
If you want.
You know who benefit from that? You have students in your classroom, because it's not one size fits all. There's a group of students there. They're behind in reading. They are behind here. They're special. They are in the spectrum, or they're really special ed. These students, you accommodate to them, and the pencil will help them more than the computer. It's my experience. I'm just sharing.
Yeah, definitely. And again, to do that, there is a print button under Tools, which you can use, and it works with any page. So you can print that off for your students. Okay. And yes, back to my presentation. I just wanted to show you a little snapshot of what that ACTFL alignment looks like, in case you need to make sure you need to submit paperwork to your school district or something to make sure that you are on the right track in aligning. So we've got ACFL standards in general and also individual state alignments as well. So I think that is everything. And of course, we have a bit of time for questions, but I did want to make sure you all have the trivia night code for this presentation. And Mike, do you have the link for that?
I don't, but I can try to find that for you.
I have it. I will put it right up.
Yay, thank you.
Okay, great, Eric.
I was like, I asked for it earlier and I don't have it. Oh, there it is.
One moment.
Okay. And we do have a question. So if you want to talk or put it in the chat, Claritha, I'd be happy to answer.
Hi, good morning. I'm calling. The reason my question is, my district, we have been using Avancemos, and now that it's pretty much on its way out, I'm the department chairperson, and we're going to be spending all of 23, 24 trying to find a fit. And I was here yesterday, I'm here today, loving what I see. But now, how, I guess my question is, if we're only sampling, and if it's 30 days or a 60-day, whatever, how are we really going to learn? Like, how I'm already sold, but of course everyone else has to be. So how do we do something where we're signed up for a training August 31st? Like,
Okay.
I'm not even playing.
Okay.
I've already got us signed up. I got us signed up for a training. I already got us signed up everything for our conference, teacher conference day. But how do I get them, or even my district, to get us an extended trial or something so that we could at least use it for 3 months, say, in order to really learn how to incorporate CI. And I like what the person said prior about printing out to be able to differentiate the learning for all of our students, is what, for whatever. So I just want to know again, and I feel like I'm just, not even getting my question out, and I apologize, is how do I use the program that we don't have the program, if that makes sense?
So what I'm hearing is that what you and the teachers in your district need is just a bit more time to look through it, more than the 30-day free trial. Is that right?
Well, we haven't even done that. Like, I'm here now for
Right.
today, yesterday, and then we're going to have someone come virtually on the 31st to present CI and the program to the department and to the director. And then me personally, I would like for them to use it. We have French and Spanish, and we also have heritage speakers. So
what I'm thinking is it would be best. So you already have that training scheduled, which is great. I think you can just send an email explaining the situation to info, and we do make exceptions for different, if you are trying to set up a trial for your entire district, we do occasionally make extensions for everyone. So info at Voces, Kelsey and David will be able to help you set up the trial that works for your situation.
Perfect. Okay. Info at Voces Digital?
Yes, let me type that. I mentioned that email a lot in this presentation, so it's best to have it.com. And if you have any questions specifically for me, I will also type my email in the chat. I have worked on the Voces Por Mundo curriculum as well as the EFL curriculum. So if anyone has any questions about that, I am willing and able to answer them.
Thank you,
And can I
Hannah.
just add, there was a lot of questions today about two things. One, the links to this presentation. It will be made available to you. One of our colleagues is doing that. And then recordings for conference sessions that were yesterday, like the editor. Those will be in the Voces conference library by probably 4 o'clock today. So we have to process the videos and get them up. And this one will also be available sometime probably tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.